Once you've defined new widgetized areas in the functions.php file, you need to call them from the template files to make them appear. As you can see here, if we populate the left and right widgetized areas with content, I'll put the archives in the left one and then put the categories in the right one, you'll see that if we reload the page, nothing has changed. That's because the template file doesn't actually call the widgetized areas yet. We have to go in and make that happen manually. So let's take a look at the code in our code editor. First off, we created these two new sidebars called left widget area and right widget area. And now we need to create a call to those left and right widget areas in our sidebar file. So I'll open the sidebar and take a look at the original code that's there. As you can see, under our fixed content that we added ourselves, we have this ID primary that says widget area. And if we go down, it says here, if not dynamic sidebar, primary widget area, and then it displays a bunch of content. This is actually a conditional call that tests to make sure that if there is no content in the widget area, it'll still display something. So it's put in all this extra content that will be displayed. What we're going to do is create a very basic version of this to display our two new widgetized areas. And we're going to do it underneath the primary one. So I'm going to find the end of the primary widgetized area, which is right here, and then add some new lines of code right here. Now, because this is a lot of code, you should go to the code snippets file and simply copy it out. It's much easier that way. So first, let's copy out the top version of it. As you can see here, it starts with div ID left right and ends with end left right. So I'll copy that, paste it in, and then we can explain it. So if you look at this closely, we've created an ID or a container that's called left right. That's the same width as the primary one. And then inside here, we have another ID that's called left widgets that says dynamic sidebar left widget area, which is the actual call to the function we created. And then underneath it, we have another ID, right widgets, again with dynamic sidebar right widget area. So if we save this and reload our page, we should see that appear. And here you see why they're called left and right, because in the style sheets, I've created it so that they appear next to one another rather than underneath one another. So now we have two sections of widgetized areas next to one another in this box. The next step is to make these conditional so that if there's no content there, we'll display something else. If we go back to the child themes code snippets, you'll see that underneath we have something that says make them conditional. And underneath here, we have some more advanced code. So let's copy that out and paste it in. So I'll highlight that and copy it. We'll go back into Eclipse. And now I'll just replace the actual code. I'll leave the left-right ID alone. So I'll paste this in instead. And there's some small subtle changes here. You'll notice that rather than just saying dynamic sidebar left widget area, it now says if not dynamic sidebar left widget area, and then display default content left. And then the same thing down here. If not dynamic sidebar right widget area, display default content. If we save this and reload the page, you'll see the widgets are still here, but that's because we defined them already. So if we go into the admin panel and take these areas out and reload the page again, you'll see it now says default content left, default content right, just like we put it into the sidebars.php file. But we want to take this one step further. We want to actually display useful content here if no widgets are displayed. So what we're going to do is go and steal some content from the primary widget area. So on the left, I want the archives to appear. So I'll go and highlight all this code, Control X, and just simply steal it or cut it out. And then I'll paste it in where I said default content left. And I'll go up and do the same with this one, which is called ID meta. So I'll highlight all of it, Control X to cut it out, scroll down, and paste it into default content right. Now, if I save this and I reload the page, we now have the archives on the left and the meta content on the right, unless we define content. So if I now go in and I say I want the categories in the left widget area, and I reload the page, archives is replaced by categories. As you can see, adding a new widgetized area to your sidebar is very easy, but you don't actually have to add widgetized areas just to your sidebar. You remember, we already have widgetized areas in the footer right here. There's 3 of them. And you can also add widgetized areas other places. I've seen people add widgetized areas to their headers so that they can display widget content in the headers. Or you can display them anywhere you want. But the cool thing is you can also make widgetized areas conditional on whether or not there's content in them, and also define content that is to be displayed if there are no widgets in them, as we've done here. So now you have all the tools you need to create very advanced widgetized areas in the sidebar or anywhere else on your site.